Do you know why most guys run a feeder for 6 months and still can't get hogs to show up during daylight? It's not the corn. It's not even the location, most of the time. It's 15 small decisions stacked on top of each other, any one of which can train those hogs to come in at 2 a.m. and never touch the pile when the sun's up. I've been running feeders across Lavaca County and Jasper County in Texas for going on 18 years. I've got 6 active setups right now, and I've killed somewhere in the range of 300 hogs off those properties combined. What I'm about to give you isn't theory. It's the list I wish somebody had handed me when I started. Before we get into it, one quick note on regulations. Night hunting, baiting, and feeder setups are legal on private land in most of the South, but rules vary more than people realize. Texas, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana are all pretty open. But if you're on public land or you're in a state with tighter restrictions around feeding or night hunting, spend 5 minutes on your state wildlife agency's website before you copy this setup. That 5 minutes has saved more than one guy a significant fine. And stick around because number 9 changed my kill rate more than any bait recipe I've ever used, and I almost cut it from the list. Number 1 is what I call hog slop. And if you've never fermented your own bait mix, you're working harder than you need to. The basic recipe goes like this. Fill a 5-gallon bucket about 2/3 with corn, add enough water to cover it by 2 to 3 inches, throw in a cup of sugar, a packet of active dry yeast, and 2 or 3 packs of strawberry or grape gelatin. Stir it once a day for 3 to 5 days until it starts to bubble and the smell hits you from 10 feet away. That fermentation produces acetic and lactic acid compounds that travel on the wind in a way that plain corn doesn't. A white-tailed deer will usually avoid a strong fermentation smell because it doesn't match anything in their food memory. A hog walks toward it every time. Their sense of smell is estimated to be 5 to 7 times stronger than a dog's. They can detect food sources buried 6 inches underground. They've been eating fermented plant matter their whole lives, so they associate that sour, sweet smell with food. That's not a coincidence. That's biology working in your favor. The Georgia DNR actually published a variation of this recipe. 150 pounds of corn, 8 pounds of sugar, 1 packet of yeast, and 4 packs of fruit gelatin, designed for trap pre-baiting. The recipe has been circulating on hunting forums since before trail cameras were common. The core chemistry hasn't changed because it works. One thing I got wrong the first 2 seasons I made this. I was using it too fresh. 2 days of fermentation smells strong to you, but the compound concentration isn't peaked yet. Give it the full 3 to 5 days until it's visibly active and the liquid has turned cloudy. That's when the scent throw is at its peak and you'll see the difference on your camera in the first 48 hours after you set it out. Number 2 is diesel-soaked corn. And before anybody closes the tab, hear me out. Take your corn pile and pour roughly a 1/4 cup, about what fits in a coffee mug, over 20 to 30 pounds of corn and mix it around. Leave it to absorb overnight before you set it out. This works in 2 directions. First, deer despise the smell of petroleum and will not touch a pile that smells like diesel. If deer are cleaning out your feeder before the hogs get there, this solves it. Second, hogs seem genuinely attracted to petroleum-based smells. I'll be honest and say I don't have a clean biological explanation for that, and anyone who tells you they do is probably guessing. My best working theory involves sulfur compounds in diesel, sharing some chemical profile with mineral smells in soil, but a biologist would likely correct me on that. A guy on Texas Hunting Forum ran a 3-camera comparison on his property in Fayette County and posted the results with photos. Straight corn averaged about 12 hog photos per week across the cameras. Diesel corn averaged closer to 22 the following week. Same cameras, same locations. He ran that side by side for 2 full months before he wrote it up. That's enough data for me to keep it in the rotation. One important caveat. Keep diesel corn well away from any creek, stock pond, or drainage running to water. Don't use it anywhere near environmental restrictions. Open ag fields and upland settings are fine. Water adjacency is not. Number 3 is so old-timer simple that I almost didn't put it on the list because it sounds like something your grandfather made up. Strawberry Kool-Aid mixed into corn. 2 or 3 packs per 50 pounds. Dry powder mixed right into the pile. The fruit ester compounds amplify the scent throw of the corn in a way that's hard to argue with, given how long this trick has been circulating. It shows up on GON forums, on Pensacola Fishing Forum, and on Arkansas hunting threads going back more than a decade. Hunters in Georgia and Alabama were doing this before anyone was photographing trail camera results. The one thing I'll add that the original posts usually skip: mix the Kool-Aid into water first, then soak the corn in it. Dry powder on dry corn just sits there. Wet compound absorbed into the kernel disperses into the surrounding soil when the first dew hits it overnight. That matters because hogs are working their nose close to the ground, not at shoulder height the way a deer does. The scent they're tracking is coming up through the soil, not floating at 5 feet off the ground. Number 4 connects directly to that soil-level scent idea, and it's what I consider the single biggest upgrade to a basic bait setup. This is the post-hole digger method. Take a post-hole digger, dig a hole roughly 12 to 15 inches deep, about the diameter of a coffee can, pour your sour corn or hog slop down into it, then cover the hole loosely with dirt. You're not hiding the corn from the hogs. You're using the soil as a scent diffusion medium. As the fermentation continues underground, the volatile compounds work upward through the soil and outward in all directions at ground level, which is exactly where a hog's nose operates. The hole also forces the hogs to root to access the bait, which means they stay on site for 20, 30, sometimes 45 minutes instead of the 5 minutes it takes a sounder to clean up a surface pore. That extended digging time leaves their scent, their body oils, their tusk marks in the dirt, which marks the site as a feeding location in a way that keeps them coming back even after the corn is gone. I've had hogs return to a buried slop hole for 8 straight nights after it was completely cleaned out. They were still checking and rooting around it on night 8. Compare that to a surface corn pile that 10 hogs clean up in 15 minutes and walk away from, usually for good. Number 5 is about feeder timing, and most guys have it set in a way that actively works against them. The default is to fire at first light and again around 4 or 5 in the evening, which sounds logical until you think about where your legal shooting window actually sits. By the time it's bright enough to identify and shoot at first light, the feeder has already been running for 20 minutes and the hogs are already on it. You walk in on a hot pile and blow it every morning before you ever get in your stand. Set your morning cycle to run 30 minutes before first light, which is roughly the edge of legal shooting light in most jurisdictions. Hogs come in during darkness, get comfortable on the pile, and when the light arrives, they're already settled and feeding. On the evening side, set it to go 90 minutes before sunset. That gives you a full 90-minute legal window after the feeder fires. Hogs that come in at the sound of the spinner are relaxed hogs. They've learned that mechanical rattle means corn. They come the same way a dog comes running when it hears the food bag. You want them arriving before the light fades, not after. Tricks like these plus 65 more are what I organized into the Hog Hunter's Bible. 80 field-tested techniques, each with the reasoning behind it, so you know why it works, not just what to do. Bait science, feeder timing, trap pre-baiting, night hunting setups, and a chapter on reading hog behavior when they get educated and stop showing up during daylight. One-page field reference in the back you can print and take with you. Links in the description below, or scan the QR code on screen if you're watching on a TV. Number 6 runs parallel to number 5, but for a completely different situation. If you're night hunting with thermal or with a hog light, run a second feeder on a separate timer, set to go off between 11 at night and midnight. Not at dusk, not at dark. 11 p.m. or later. The hogs that have been pressured during daylight and crepuscular hours have not been pressured at 11 at night, because almost nobody is out there at 11 at night. After a few weeks, that late timer trains a group to show up at a window that the rest of the hunters on neighboring properties aren't hunting. A buddy in Tensas Parish, Louisiana, mentioned this offhand at a lease dinner. He'd been doing it for 2 full seasons and kept wondering why he was killing hogs. The other guys on the property weren't seeing it all. The feeder timer was the entire answer. Takes 30 seconds to program, completely changes your nocturnal setup. Number 7 ties directly into that. If you're hunting at night and you're sweeping with a white light, you're clearing the area within seconds of turning it on. Educated hogs at a feeder, they've already been pressured at associate sudden bright light with danger, and they don't wait to confirm that instinct. Green or red wavelength lights, the kind designed for predator and hog hunting, don't trigger the same alarm response. The biology involves the photoreceptor distribution in a hog's eye and their lower sensitivity to red and green wavelengths compared to movement detection and contrast in low light. A Wicked Light's W403IC or something in that class mounted on your rifle gives you enough range to identify a target at 80 to 100 yards, roughly the distance from home plate to the pitcher's mound, without putting a white beam across the pile. I've switched between green and red on the same property through the same season, and didn't see a consistent difference in hog behavior between the two colors, so I wouldn't lose sleep over that debate. What matters is, you're not using white. That part isn't negotiable. If you're getting value out of this, hit subscribe. I've got more of these coming. Number 8 is the one that surprises people, and honestly, it surprised me too the first time someone laid out the logic. When a big solo boar is working your feeder, the instinct is to let him go and wait for the sounder to come in. Don't. Shoot the boar first. A mature boar running 250 to 300 pounds is a bully at the feeder in every practical sense. He shows up, and he pushes every other hog away from the site. Sows won't commit. Smaller boars won't come in. The whole sounder avoids the area, while a dominant male is monopolizing the food source. I made the mistake of not shooting a big boar on one of my Lavasa County setups for almost 3 weeks, because I was convinced he was holding other hogs nearby. He wasn't. He was running them off. When I finally killed him, the sounder showed up on camera within 36 hours. A sow with 6 shoats and 2 smaller boars, roughly 10 animals total, had not been to that site in close to a month. They were back within 2 days and ran a predictable rotation through the rest of the season. Shoot the bully. The rest come back within 24 to 48 hours. It sounds backwards until you watch it happen on your own camera, and then it's one of those things you can't unsee. The biology makes sense when you think about it. Hog sounders are led by a dominant sow, not a boar. The boar is an interloper at the food source, not a member of the group. When he's gone, the social dynamic at the feeder normalizes and the sow brings the sounder back on their own schedule. Number 9 is the most important tactical piece on this list, and I almost cut it because it's harder to explain than any of the bait tricks. When your cell cam picks up a sounder hitting your feeder on day 1, the instinct is to go hunt it immediately. That's the wrong move. Wait 2 days. On day 1, the hogs found the bait, ate, and left. They're not patterned yet. They came from different directions, haven't committed to an approach route, and they're still treating this as a new and potentially uncertain food source. On day 2, they're returning to a confirmed location from their bedding area with more directness and more confidence. They've already decided this spot is worth revisiting, and their movement is more predictable. Day 3 and beyond, on a pressured property, is when any disturbance from your day 1 scouting or your day 2 hunt starts to register, and the nocturnal shift begins. The window is day 2, not day 1 and not day 5. The thread where I first saw this laid out with real numbers was on Texas boars, posted by a hunter running Creek Bottom in Jasper County. He tracked 2 full seasons of visit data, logged each hunt and its outcome by visit day number, and posted the raw results. Day 2 produced significantly better outcomes than any other timing. He had 61 hunts in that data set. That kind of field data deserves a lot more attention than it got. The practical takeaway: when you get a day 1 notification from your cell cam, resist the urge to go immediately. Screenshot the image, note the time and the direction they came from, and plan your day 2 setup based on that approach. Set up your stand on the downwind side of their approach route before the feeder timer fires, and let the sound of the spinner bring them in while you're already in position. That sequencing alone eliminates most of the pressure mistakes that turn a day 2 hunt into a blown setup. Number 10 is about wind, and I still get it wrong occasionally, so I'm not going to pretend it's obvious. Always set up so that when you're in position, the wind is coming from the feeder toward you, not from you toward the feeder. That sounds like the most basic instruction on the planet until you actually walk a property and realize how often the natural feeder placement near a trail crossing, in a clearing, at a field edge, puts the prevailing wind at your back. A hog's nose is its primary defense, and you cannot outlast a hog that has smelled you. They don't hold their ground and peek the way a pressured whitetail sometimes will. They turn inside out, and they don't come back for days. Wind first placement also means thinking about your entry route before you hang a stand. Come in from downwind of the feeder, not through the area the hogs approach from. If you're bumping hogs on the walk-in, your entry is the problem, not the bait. I ruined a 3-week patterning effort in Wilcox County one year by walking in upwind of the site because I was lazy about checking the wind before I left the truck. The camera showed the sounders circling the feeder at about 60 yards that night, never committing and moving off. They came back 4 days later, a lesson I've repeated fewer times since, though I won't claim I've never repeated it. Number 11 and 12 go together because they're both about elevation. Every foot of height you gain over a feeder setup reduces how fast your scent reaches the hogs before you can shoot. Ground blinds at feeder setups are a mistake I see constantly, and I understand the logic. You're enclosed, scent contained, movement concealed. The problem is that hogs circle a food source before committing, and they work their nose low to the ground while they do it. A ground blind puts your scent column right in the zone they're sampling on every approach. A hang-on stand or a saddle rig at 15 to 18 feet, roughly the roofline of a 2-story house, gets your scent column above their primary sampling zone and above their sight plane on approach. You're not invisible at that height, but you're dramatically less detectable before they've committed to the pile. The saddle specifically is worth mentioning for feeder setups, because you can mount it on almost any tree regardless of trunk diameter, and the shooting angle straight down at a hog 15 to 20 yards from the base of your tree is extremely favorable. The vitals are fully exposed from above, and your backstop is the ground. Just confirm your state's rules on elevated setups over bait in your specific zone, but across most of the South, this is entirely standard practice. Number 13 sounds too obvious to put on a list until you realize how rarely people actually commit to it. Run your feeder year-round. Not during deer season, not late fall through spring, year-round. Hogs breed continuously. A sow can produce 2 litters per year starting at 6 months old. New sounders move through your property constantly looking for reliable food sources. And the moment your feeder goes dry, whatever group was using it finds an alternative, and the pattern you built over 6 weeks resets to 0. Rebuilding a patterned feeding rotation from scratch takes 4 to 6 weeks at minimum on a property with any movement through it. The cost of running a feeder on corn year-round comes out to somewhere in the range of $25 to $30 a month at current prices, about the same as 2 or 3 tanks of gas for an ATV. My wife spent an entire weekend last spring with strong opinions about the year-round corn bill until she looked at the summer camera footage and counted 11 hogs in a single night photo. She still brings it up. She hasn't told me to shut the feeder off. That's roughly a win in my experience. Number 14 is something most hog hunters overlooks because it looks like deer hunting infrastructure. Protein pellets and cotton seed, the same supplement deer hunters put out for antler development, get absolutely cleaned up by hogs. Cottonseed especially has a fat content and a scent profile that hogs track and respond to, and it's available at any feed store across the South. If you're already running deer supplemental feed on your property, you're already attracting hogs to that general area, whether your camera has caught them yet or not. The practical setup is to locate your hog feeder roughly 100 yards from your deer feeder, close enough that passing hogs smell both sites, far enough that a shot at the hog setup doesn't blow out your deer hunting. Protein pellets also hold moisture and ferment slightly in a pile over time, which amplifies the scent as the days go on. Some hunters mix a 50-pound bag of pellets directly into their sour corn slop. I've tried that combination, and I can't honestly say my results were dramatically different from sour corn alone. I'll admit I wasn't running a controlled comparison at the time, just mixing and observing, so take that for what it's worth. The hogs didn't refuse it, and they didn't seem to need much convincing either. This plus 65 more field-tested techniques are all in the Hog Hunter's Bible: bait, traps, feeders, night hunting, behavior under pressure. Reference card in the back. It's in the description below. Number 15 is the one I think about on every single approach to a feeder setup, and it's also the simplest thing on this list. Before you commit to walking all the way in and climbing your tree, swing downwind of the feeder by about 50 yards, roughly the width of a 2-lane road with both shoulders included. Stop and just breathe. If hogs are anywhere near that feeder, you will smell them before you ever see them. The scent is not subtle once you've encountered it. A heavy, nutty, sweet rotten smell with a strong musk underneath. Part corn, part wet dog, part barn floor. It stops you in your tracks the first time you catch it on an approach, because you realize in about 2 seconds that the hogs are already there. If you catch that smell, don't walk in. Back up quietly, get into shooting position from where you're standing, or let them feed out and move off before you climb. Walking into a live feeder blows the setup for that night, and often for the next 2 or 3 nights on a pressured property. The smell check costs you 90 seconds on your walk-in, and it has saved me from ruining more good setups than I want to count. Here's the piece that took me too long to understand. None of these 15 tricks work as well in isolation as they do stacked. The fermented slop gets hogs to the site. The post hole keeps them there. The feeder timing puts them on the pile during your legal window. Wind first placement lets you sit over it without blowing the approach. Elevation eliminates their primary sensory advantage. The cell cam 2-day rule tells you exactly when to strike. And the downwind smell check confirms whether the setup is already live before you commit. A guy on the Drew County, Arkansas hunting group posted a full season breakdown last spring after building a system like this from scratch. The year before, he'd killed 14 hogs on his property across the entire season. The year he dialed in his feeder setup, he killed 41. Same property, same equipment, same number of days in the field. He made a point in his post of saying it wasn't a lucky season and he wasn't hunting any harder. It was the system finally working the way it was supposed to. 14 to 41 is not luck. That's what happens when the pieces connect. Pick 2 or 3 of these and add them to your current setup this week. Don't try to rebuild everything at once or you'll never know what moved the needle. Start with the buried slop hole and the feeder timing. Those 2 changes alone will show up on your camera within a week. If you're running thermal, add the midnight timer. Once you see it working, layer the rest in over time. The hogs don't stop coming. You just have to give them a reason to stay.